Hello, Blazers. Welcome to UAB Green and Told. Every episode is a chance to hear from the people who make UAB what it is today. Welcome to episode 177 of UAB Green and Told, originally released Monday, June 1st, 2026. Want to catch up on past episodes of UAB's most listened to podcast? Visit alumni.uab.edu/greenandtold or find us on Spotify and the Apple Podcast app. And while you're there, leave a written review so more Blazers can discover us. I'm Greg Berry, a UAB alum and Director of Communications in the Office of Alumni Affairs. Some stories start small, but for today's guest, his takes off like a firecracker, bursting from the bustle of Bombay all the way to Birmingham, where he's chasing down cancer with everything he's got. Karim Budhwani is a cancer killer through and through, driven by this mix of big picture vision and personal fire that makes you lean in every time he talks. And as we'll hear, crossing continents meant learning how opportunity shows up differently depending on where you land, and how sometimes the biggest breakthrough starts with a laugh.
Just as a joke, we set up the company. And guess what? We started making progress. Our objectives were very simple. Use technology to improve the environment.
In a world where a 90% failure rate is sometimes considered cutting edge, Karim's not driven by despair. He's fueled by momentum. As he'll share, he's convinced the horizon isn't a barrier, but an invitation.
I think that if we continue down this path of staying focused on crushing cancer and having this kind of an open mindset, I think that we are on the precipice of some really, really great advancements.
Still, none of those advancements matter if we can't reach patients in time. And for Karim, time isn't just a measurement, it's a mission.
You have to worry about just one day. Because if we can extend the patient's life by one day, then that one day might be the day when the right drug is discovered for that patient.
Somewhere in Bombay, a teenage Karim Budhwani is thumbing through American college brochures that somehow found their way into his world, never guessing they'd send him halfway across the globe. Not long later, he's stepping off a plane in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, trying to figure out how Mumbai turned into cornfields and cold fronts. Karim and I actually crossed paths years ago because of a t-shirt. He was wearing his co-college gear, which, for a Wartburg alum like me, is basically fighting words. We laughed, connected, and moved on. But that moment stuck with me. He's the kind of guy who brings his whole story with him wherever he goes. And he's lived a lot of story. Bombay, Iowa, Atlanta, Birmingham, each place shaping the cancer-killing mindset he's built today. Before we get too far ahead, we've got to go back and figure out what led him to Co., home of a friendly collegiate rival of mine, in the first place.
I think that there was a lot of focus by the United States, and I think that until recently there was, in developing more soft power, around the world. There was the drive to build bridges, and the United States used to actually have a United States Educational Foundation in India, which was part of consular services, and they used to guide students in terms of how do you apply for schools in the United States, where are the schools, what are some of the good schools. We actually had people from schools actually come to India to recruit as well. Students, what they were looking for was students who are exceptional, in many different areas. And when they can't find those kind of people, they look at me. So that's really how I got I got admitted to a few other schools that are lesser known. No, actually, they're better known than Co. The reason why I picked Co over some of the other schools, number one, was money. They gave me a scholarship.
Yeah.
I got into the number one school for robotics at the time in the world, and I couldn't go there because they couldn't fund me. But Co, I called them, and I kid you not, I spoke with them, and within a few minutes, they made all the arrangements, and they were, this was Midwest nice,
Yeah.
I spoke, the person that I spoke to then, I still am in touch with her. Phenomenal people. So I was absolutely in love right away, and I was 19 years old. I had never been outside India. Actually, I had for like a few days to Singapore and Thailand with my parents, like for 10 days or something. But other than that, I had never been out on my own before. So this was a major step. And it's because code really made me feel like, it was going to be good. Right.
And you move from there then to here? Did you just get
Yeah.
sick of the cold and corn and decided to go for the hills and heat?
Work. Basically, I got some really good offers in Atlanta first. And so I moved there. Plus, I thought, hey, Atlanta, it was going to be more international food. Iowa, like I said, Cedar Rapids, center of the universe. But, at that time, did not have a lot of food options and such. They're getting better. So I moved to Atlanta, and then I just couldn't stand it because I was like, why am I wasting my life? Half my life is in the car. And so I said, forget it. And then when I got the offer to move to Birmingham, Alabama, at first I was at Birmingham, Alabama, but then this is the guy who went to Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So I took the opportunity, and man, I've loved it here. It's been great.
You spent a lot of time not in the classroom at UAB. You first started kind of as a guest lecturer and somebody that would come in and speak to the classes. How did that evolve and come to be?
I'm sure that some people will remember the Great Recession or the financial crisis or whatever you want to call it of 2007, 2008. Every sector, every state was hit hard. At the time, governor was Governor Riley, and he recognized that about 95% of the world lives outside the United States, and over 99% of the world lives outside of Alabama. So he said, you know what, we are in this situation. One way out of this is by building bridges of trade and understanding with the rest of the world. So he pulled together a few CEOs from across the state. I happened to be one of them. And yeah, can you believe that we were actually focused on building bridges rather than walls? At the time, I was also serving as the chair of the Smiley Professionals Network. So where I had a similar kind of objective. So those two birds with one stone for me. And basically, that's how you know I and so basically, I did this tour of service for about 2 to 3 years. When we went around the world, it was good, really good from a mission perspective. But as a side effect, I got to see firsthand the devastating impact of cancer. And so after we were done with that, I said, hey, listen, guys, if we're really that smart, maybe we should go to do something about cancer. And so that's how, my arc, I moved from doing what I was doing then to really focusing in on, crushing cancer.
And you brought up the company that you were working with a little bit as CEO, and that was Elixir International, if I'm not
That is
mistaken.
correct. That is absolutely right. Yes. 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 And that was my first venture. And that's a funny story about that too. I was just sitting around with my friends at the time, and we were talking about just how easy it is in the United States for somebody to be able to set up a company, do these kind of things, as compared to a place like India at the time. Where it was there's a lot of inefficiencies, and so just as a joke, we set up the company. And guess what? We started making progress. Our objectives were very simple. That we wanted to use technology to improve the environment. So whatever we could do in terms of technology engineering to be able to have a better impact on our planet, because we wanted the planet to be livable for a sustained amount of time. So that's how we got started over there.
Your academic career has kind of woven through different things, including, the heat of Alabama, Cedar Rapids, with the river running through it. You ultimately decided to come to school here at UAB. What went into the decision to get that biomedical engineering degree?
Yeah, so one of the things that I mentioned, we said, when we got done with our tour of service, and I said, let's do something about cancer. Well, the thing is, I really didn't have any background in medicine. So the fastest way to learn is through immersion. So I figured, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and get a degree in nanomedicine. I want to get a doctorate in nanomedicine because I want to fully understand what in the world is the problem. Why are we not able to solve this issue with cancer? So I started off looking at, and because my background is more in engineering, I said, you know what, we got to combine medicine and engineering to do something, in this space. And so I started off with the biomedical engineering component, then added materials to it, and then the cancer center. So basically pulled different disciplines together to develop a sort of a specialized program in nanomedicine because I was different from other students, right? I mean, other students come into school, they're looking at a different trajectory. I came in with a mission. Oh,
Yeah.
I wanted to do something about cancer. So I said, okay, all right, guys, how do we do this? And I said, okay, I need these variables to be in this place. This is how I need to shape things and go. This time, while I was at school, I was still the CEO of Elixir. Okay, I still was, and I was still doing that full time. And so I had to, arrange the chessboard such that I could do both without compromising either. It was a fun experience. It was a great adventure. I actually got, even though I was doing this simultaneously, I was still able to get my doctorate like in 5 years from undergrad to doctor, including the master's in biomedical engineering.
And it's interesting they just bring up the doctorate now. You have two. You got a Doctor of Liberal Arts from Co.
Right.
Your
That's right.
undergrad, and then you got a PhD in neuroscience from UAB. You basically obtained them simultaneously.
Well, so a PhD is in nanomedicine, but yes,
Okay.
the doctorate in liberal arts, yeah, was basically looking at my the 25 years prior,
Okay.
my contribution to science, technology, what I call STEAM, which actually bridges the liberal arts and humanities with STEM. The focus on STEAM, the focus on the human AI connection is where the future is going to be, at least for the foreseeable future.
You have, through your research, really focused on different realms of cancer and different ways to help. Is there something in the life that kind of directed you that way, or was it just that organization, that task force you were a part of, that drew you that way? Because let's face it, the majority of people in the world have been touched by cancer one way or another.
Correct. That is correct. And I think that that's where again the Iron Man stuff comes in because majority of the world is absolutely right. Statistically, basically half the world. So every other person will be diagnosed with cancer at some point in their lives, right? So that's terrible. And then because of the way I came into the program, that's what I was looking at, the background, right? Okay, so this is the case. We've been doing this for over 2,500 years now. Cancer is nothing new. It's been around, so where are the challenges? And one of the things that you realize right off the bat is that when we deliver systemic therapy to patients, right, it is wrong 3 out of 4 times. 75% of the times it's wrong. And it's not because the clinicians don't know what they're doing. They are extremely smart, dedicated folks. No question about it. But there is a reason why those don't work. Then if you go further upstream and you look at clinical trials, our failure rate is 96%.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you think about it, and if that doesn't ruin your day, I don't know what would. Um, and this is despite investments of over $100 billion every year. That's billion with a B. So we lose money, we lose time, we lose lives. And I think that in some cases, which is the absolute worst loss, is the loss of hope too. And so when you look at it from that perspective, you're like, okay, so there is a pattern here. What is going on? And from an engineering perspective, I was looking at how drugs are actually discovered and developed and then delivered to patients. I was scratching my head because the way we do that today, or we've been doing it historically, is we test these drugs to see how effective they are either in plastic dishes or in mice. Okay, those are the two major platforms. And I've done this to people before, giving them this backdrop, so it will not be as effective for you. But the question that I would ask you is, would you buy a car that used mice as crash test dummies? Makes no sense. Absolutely doesn't make any sense unless you're watching like a Disney movie. Mice can't even drive our cars. So, but the challenge has been that for over 85 years, I think it's 80 to 85 years, there was a mandate by the FDA that all the drugs that go to trials for cancer, or actually for really most drugs, unless they're really rare disease, you have to first show them to work in mice. In 2023, that changed. It's become even better where they're moving to this new approach methods. That is where my focus was in 2015. So when I actually started down this path, I said, we need better vehicles. We need better testing platforms to be able to tell, well, which drugs out of the thousands of compounds that we've got should we develop in the first place? Because only when we have the right approved therapy can we actually get to delivering them to patients. And then once we have these drugs approved, how do we match them to the patient's tumor so that we would get the right treatment to the right patient the very first time, instead of having to do this, 75% wrong and then just keep trying. And again, it's like I want to emphasize, it's not because the clinicians or the teams are inapt. They are very dedicated, very smart. They just don't have the tools. And that's what we want to provide.
And we being CerFlux as well.
Yes, 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 yes.
Did that come from just the maturation of the old company and then the degrees that you obtained, or what went into CerFlux?
So some of it is also luck,
Okay,
obviously.
sure.
And our CFO and I often joke that, we would much rather be lucky than smart. Having said that, the pathway to this particular approach, which was before the FDA modernization and so on, was simply because I think that if you are an outsider coming into the field, and then if you're looking at it from the perspective of either an industry CEO or somebody, you're looking at, okay, where are my failure points, right? That's the first thing you want to analyze. And you look at it, you look at brilliant people all over the world, not just at UAB, everywhere around the world. They're trying really hard. So they're not lazy. They're not incompetent. So what is stopping that, right? So that's how you kind of narrow it down. And we narrowed it down to this issue is that nowhere in my body is there a microenvironment that's like a plastic dish. We're collaborating with the folks at UAB too, which is great, and we're collaborating with other institutions as well who do see these same challenges. So anyway, so the way we came about doing this was by looking at the bigger picture, finding the points where we could have points of failure, and then trying to address those. Um, and I don't know how much you know about cancer, but our focus has basically been human relevant tumors, as opposed to just generic cells and so on.
How close do you think we are to major breakthroughs in cancer research and treatment?
Cancer has this uncanny ability to humble you every time you make a projection. So that's the challenge. But I believe we're very, very close into making, we've seen accelerated development. The last 10 years have been very exciting. We still have ways to go. But the last 10 years have been exciting. What we're doing today would not have been possible 10 years ago.
Sure.
Just the technology wasn't there for it, so we wouldn't be able to do it. With all the advances that are happening now, and also with the shifting in the mindset, I think that the next 5 to 10 years are going to be very exciting. Now, everything in biotech takes long, and that's good. You don't want to fail often, fail fast when people's lives are at stake. So it is going to take some time, but I think we are at a very, very exciting inflection point. The last 10 years have set us up really well. Now, of course, we can screw it up, but I think that if we continue down this path of staying focused on crushing cancer and having this kind of an open mindset, I think that we are on the precipice of some really, really great advancements.
I want to focus on failure, but not in a failure way. The old saying is that you can fail 7 times and still make the Hall of Fame in baseball by being a 300 hitter. You mentioned that an insane amount, 90+% of cancer research is failing. How does that not gnaw at you day in, day out, knowing, this might not fail? Or sorry, this might fail.
Yeah, it's more likely to fail. So my one of my good friends and advisors, uh, Mansoor Saleh, he was at UAB as well. He's now the founding director of the Cancer Center at AKU in Nairobi. And what he used to tell me is, he said, don't worry about the very long term. You have to worry about just one day. Because if we can extend the patient's life by one day, then that one day might be the day when the right drug is discovered for that patient. So, and I apply that same logic even to biotechs. I think that it applies to any kind of startup, but more so in biotech. I think we are on the edge of doom every day. So every day you wake up, you're on the edge of doom. And my job as the CEO of CerFlux is to push doom off by one day. That's it. So you are absolutely right. We live in this environment of, which is constantly has a presence of death and despair. But I think it does take that itself, I think, provides you the drive, the mission. And Chris and I often talk about this to Chris. who's our CFO, is that if we don't do it, who will? Right? We are in a position to do something, so we should put every resource that's available to us to bear. And yes, we are in an uphill battle. I agree. Yes, we face all these horrible odds, but you know who faces worse odds than we do? Cancer patients.
Yeah.
And I think we need to really honor that. And I think we need to. That's another thing that Mansur used to say is that hope is the drug. And I think we need to be able to really respect and honor the courage of patients, and not just the patients, but also the caregivers, because it is a huge lift. And so if there is a day that I can keep banging my head against the wall, to tear it down, to make it into a bridge to a future where cancer is a manageable disease. And a lot of these people, that's the other problem. They get into this hype about, oh, we're going to cure cancer or we're going to end cancer. That's not possible. Cancer is like a software error. You really cannot have bug-free software. So, we have trillions of cells in our body that are like little computers, and they're constantly copying themselves. There's going to be errors. And that's okay. But I don't think that a cancer diagnosis should be like a terminal or a hopeless statement. It should be something manageable. It should be something, okay, you've got cancer. We've got something that is going to be able to treat you. You're going to be able to manage it. Your quality of life will also not be impaired. So that's the other focus that we have to, if you are a brilliant engineer, if you're an amazing professor, if you're a great podcaster, that's what society wants you to do. You're an asset to society. When you're doing what you're doing, then you are actually paying dividends to society. If you're stuck in a hospital bed, you're not. So we have to make sure that the quality of life of patients are preserved too. Because let's just say, and I gave you some examples of professions, but you could just be a grandfather or a grandmother. I want you to have the best life with your grandchildren. I mentioned a lot of statistics, but really, it's about one person. It's about that patient.
It's about that patient and only needing that one day
That's it.
potentially to change. With that in mind, though, and to expand on it, where does Karim Budhwani and CerFlux want to be in 10, 15, 20 years in the realm of cancer research?
So I think where we want to be is we want to be able to solve this problem for sure. Okay, so we want to be able to do this. So we want the first thing that we want to do is save lives. Then we of course want to also make the planet livable, because the whole point saving lives is not livable. And then we also want to make life worth living. And then I know that sounds very liberal artsy and very co-college or Wartburg-esque, but really those are the goals. I think as soon as we solve this, we're going to go on to the next. And the reason why we're going to the next is because if not us, who? And that's the question that I think we all must ask ourselves, because as I also mentioned, we are all assets to society, really. And that is the bottom line. And as an asset, what can I offer to society? So what can I do? How can I make humanity better? How can I leave this world a better place than I inherited? I think that if that is the driver, it is a lot of fun, because we are workaholics. We love what we do and we do what we love. And that's again, a very privileged position to be in. I recognize that. But I think that if people were to be able to find that, now I don't mean passion, because passion fizzles. I mean energy. I mean, purpose. Those are the kinds of things that can really drive you. And you have to balance that with pragmatism. Your passion may be that I want to be able to be underwater without any equipment for 10 hours, but that's not practical. So you have to be able to balance those.
You've been awarded CEO of the Year. You've been named to A-list. You have all of these accolades. But I read somewhere the most meaningful is a title that the friends of your sons came up with Cancer Killer.
That's right.
What went
That's
behind
right.
that?
Oh man, so it was awesome, because when they were this was, I think, first grade or something like that, second grade, and they were asking parents to come and explain or something about what they do and so on. And I figured maybe cancer would be too much, so I actually uh, did a little demonstration of the cardiovascular system, and I created this little. I've got these little plastic party plates that are red in color. And then I had my boys help me with this. We cut out egg cartons with like four eggs,
Yep.
and we stuck it to that. And that was our red blood cell. And then like ping pong balls were oxygen. So hemoglobin, you got the four spots. And I had the teachers become major organs. and the class, everybody was just basically a artery or a vein, and they would pass these around. The organs would take one oxygen, so you would have oxygenated blood going this way, and then deoxygenated blood coming out. It was a great time. These little kids, man, they were all over it. And then while I was doing that demonstration, I spoke about it. I actually had these kids come to our lab as well, you know, and they asked phenomenal questions. So, elementary school kids, incredible questions. And then one of them, I got these really just beautiful thank you notes from the kids too. And then one of them actually was talking to, and my kids were talking to them and about what I do and so on and so forth. And she goes, "Yeah, he's a cancer killer." And I just thought that was amazing. So yeah, I love that. I love that title.
That's Dr. Karim Budhwani. He earned a Master of Science from the School of Engineering and Heersink School of Medicine in 2015 and his PhD in nanomedicine from the graduate school in 2018. As CEO of CerFlux, he's an entrepreneur who understands breakthroughs and what it means to be a blazer.
From my perspective, we can take a look at the mascot, the dragon, blazing a trail, so on and so forth, trailblazers. That's definitely there. But I also think that from my perspective, being a blazer has always been this commitment to making a difference. The faculty that I've worked with, phenomenal people that I collaborate with today as well. I think that whether they actually went to UAB, whether they're UAB alums or not, I think that the commitment to making a difference is shared amongst all of us. And to me, that we need to be able, and we're young, UAB is a young institution, and so there's going to be growing pains for sure. We still need to find our footing for what we are going to be for the next 50, 100 years. But I think that if we are to hone in on this, about being committed to making a difference, I think that to me is blazing the real trail. That, to me, is being the real blazer.
That's another episode of UAB Green and Told in the books. Catch up on past episodes at alumni.uab.edu/green and told, on Spotify or the Apple Podcast app. If you have a guest idea, send it our way at greenandtold@uab.edu. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram to stay connected with all things UAB alumni. Thanks for listening, and as always, go Blazers.